Thank you so much, Joe. This is a homecoming, and this is family, literally and figuratively. And my staff always write these long, elegant speeches, which I never do. I'm going to keep my remarks pretty quick and love to do some Q&A with the audience. But it's an absolute honor to be here with the Ounce, and the work that you guys are doing locally and nationally. I can't overstate the importance. And I want to begin just by thanking a few different folks. First of all, we can't have a gathering like this without sort of reflecting on the legacy of Irving Harris. And he's just a giant of a man. He was someone I absolutely considered a mentor. His commitment, his integrity, his leadership to have a corporate icon like that, pushing so hard for babies and for better prenatal work, and understanding in his fiber how important that birth to 5 age range was. He helped to change the national conversation. So we are all indebted to Irving, and collectively but personally, is someone who was committed to the community, who put his resources, his time and energy where they would matter most. He was just, again, an amazing role model for me, and I appreciate that so much. Barbara Bowman is here. Barbara's been just a passionate advocate for this for her entire career. She was an amazing partner for me with the Chicago Public Schools. When the call came to go to Washington, Barbara said, "Hey, I'll come work a couple of days for a week with you there." I was like stunned. And did an amazing job in the transition. She helped find Jacqueline Jones, who's been a wonderful, wonderful partner of me, driving our early childhood efforts. But Barbara's legacy here in the city, but across the country, has been extraordinary. I want to thank my... I want to thank my mother who's here, and my sister and brother. And my mother's been at this work coming in June for 50 years. And my brother and sister and I have all tried to follow in her footsteps in various ways. The experience growing up as a part of her after-school program was absolutely formative to us. And there isn't a bigger, more passionate advocate for early childhood education than her. So I have to stay on this issue. If I don't, I can't go home. And between her and Barbara, they keep me in check. And any chance of slipping doesn't happen. But I just saw growing up as a part of a program the huge impact these formative years have. And I was trying to think of one example, but we had one example, I won't use the family's name, with 5 children. And the family all came to us at a certain point. And obviously 5 children of a fairly large range of ages. The oldest child sort of struggled, hasn't quite ever found their way. The middle child became a teacher's assistant, did okay, was sort of starting to break those cycles of poverty and social failure. And then the baby of the family, the 5th child, is actually on track. She's been teaching. She's actually on track to become a principal in the Chicago Public Schools. So same family, same tough dynamics in the community, 5 children. Why is the youngest one the star? It's because she came to my mother's program as a baby and not at a later age. And so we've just seen firsthand how critical those early years are and what a difference it makes. My dad taught at the University of Chicago for over 40 years and had hundreds and hundreds of remarkable students, and would sort of talk about their research and talk about the graduate students. There was only one student who he ever said to me, "Arne, you have to meet this person." And this was almost 20 years ago. That one graduate student at the University of Chicago who he asked me to meet was Diana Rauner. And it was just an early identification of talent. And to be here now, to have her lead this organization, it's amazing how things come full circle. And we're so lucky to have Diana leading these efforts with the Ounce. That was literally the only time he ever said, "This person's so special, you got to go spend some time with her." And I also want to just congratulate the mayor, Rahm Emanuel. And there are lots of stories about Rahm, and I won't tell them, and they're all true. I could probably add a few, but what I will say is that whether it's here in Chicago and Washington, I had an extraordinary partner who pushed so hard to dramatically improve the quality of education around the country, and that leadership he showed here locally and then the national level coming back here. He's going to have a laser-like focus on taking public education to the next level, and look forward to having a great, great partnership with him. But he's going to put his political capital, he's going to put his energy behind this effort, and the city and our city's children are going to be better for that. It's been an amazing couple years in Washington. In a couple areas, I think we've made remarkable progress. We have some huge challenges that you guys know. Just to give you a couple data points, we have a 25% dropout rate in this country. That's 1 million young people leaving our schools for the streets each year. Obviously, no good jobs out for them. We're basically perpetuating poverty and social failure where that happens. In one generation, we've gone from first in the world in college graduates to 9th. We've stagnated, we've flatlined as other countries have passed us by. We're paying a huge price for that economically today. And then I'm spending more and more time looking at international data because we're in a globally competitive international marketplace today. Jobs are going to go to where the knowledge workers are. And when you look at our international benchmarks, the PISA results, our 15-year-olds rank anywhere between 15th and 30th across the globe. And so we are simply being out-educated by other countries. I've also broken the data down by state. So if each of our states was its own country, how would we compete? Our highest performing state is Massachusetts. Massachusetts, if it was its own country, would rank 17th. So we don't have one state in the top 10 or the top 15. We go from Massachusetts at 17th to Mississippi at about 94, Illinois is somewhere in the 40s or 50s. But I give you all that dropout rate data, college graduation data, PISA results to say that even in a tough economic climate, and I would argue particularly in these extraordinarily difficult times, we have to find a way to get better faster than we ever have. That's the only way as a country that we're going to maintain our strength. I see this as a civil rights issue. I see it as an economic imperative. I see it as the issue of national security. Now, I've done some fascinating press conferences with members of the military who are very concerned because less than 25% of our young people can qualify to go into the military today. They're physically unfit, academically unprepared, or they're obese. So whatever lens you view it, and I view it through all three, as a civil rights issue, as an economic imperative, and as an issue of national security, the status quo isn't good enough. And anybody that says that we're sort of okay, or that we can just get better slowly, or get better at the rate we have, they're doing our country a grave disservice. So we have to challenge the status quo, and we're trying to do that in a lot of ways. On the higher education side, we've had some tremendous breakthroughs. Thanks to the President's leadership and Ram and others, we've had the biggest increase in Pell Grants since the GI Bill. Massive increase to make college much more accessible to families that are struggling, and going to college has never been more important. So couldn't feel better about that. I know there's some investment bankers here. I hope that I don't offend them. We were able to take $40 billion, sort of cut out the middlemen on loans, do the loans ourselves, put all that money into students, which we thought made sense, was somewhat controversial. We think the best thing we can do is to invest in our nation's young people and give them a chance to go to college. On sort of reform at the elementary and the high school level, secondary level, massive amounts of change. 42 states have raised standards, college and career-ready standards, and so for the first time in our country, a child in Illinois or a child in Mississippi or a child in Massachusetts is going to be measured by the same yardstick. That's an absolute game changer. And historically, standards have been dummied down. It's good for politicians, made them look good. We were lying to children, we were lying to families, we were not doing them the right service at all. That is fundamentally changing. We had about 36 states remove barriers to innovative schools and to creativity. That's been fantastic to see. 44 states are working together on common standards, so we're breaking through at that level too. The area where I think our department, we've played around the edges, but we haven't quite done enough to date, is around early childhood education. And we haven't had the resources to do that. We've tried to be very, very creative and use every lever we can. We tried to embed early childhood education into everything we were doing, into Race to the Top, into the Invest in Innovation program, into Promised Neighborhoods. We've partnered in unprecedented ways with HHS, with Kathleen Sebelius, and Jacqueline's developed a fantastic, trusting, working relationship there. And we're seeing them talk about not just increasing slots, but increasing quality and Head Start and other areas. So those partnerships have been great. But in all honesty, I don't think we've done enough to date. What I'm very pleased to say today is that if everything goes right in Washington tomorrow, that's going to change fundamentally. With the resolution of the budget issue, we're going to have, we think, a significant amount of money for next round of Race to the Top, and we want to take a significant amount of those resources to put behind our Early Learning Challenge Fund. This is something that so many of you have been so actively pushing for and encouraging. We tried a couple other times, didn't quite get it done, and I don't want to speak too soon or jinx us here today, but I'm very, very hopeful the right thing will happen in Washington tomorrow, and that will give us a chance, I think in an unprecedented way, to drive this kind of systemic change around the country that we've seen in higher ed, that we've seen in the elementary and in the high school levels, to do it around early childhood education. And if we have this fund, there's a number of things that we're going to encourage states to do to change their behavior and to get better results for students. One, we have to see greater coordination among the disparate funding streams. And we have folks doing many different things, not in a coordinated fashion, not leveraging scarce resources, and we could put money behind those places that are willing to challenge the status quo and think about that differently. Third, we have to think about early childhood educators and early childhood education as a real profession. And we have to do so much to pay our early childhood educators more money. We have to professionalize the profession.
Just make sure to grab somebody before Diana calls.
We have to think about how we're recruiting great talent, how we're compensating that great talent, how we're rewarding that talent, how we're retaining that talent. And if this is seen as glorified babysitting, we're not going to give our babies the chance that they need. Finally, and I know this group has been so helpful on this, we have to advocate not just, again, access and slots, but quality. And we have to evaluate how students are doing. And if we're not making a difference in students' lives, we can't continue to perpetuate the status quo. So having those open, honest conversations about the programs that are making the biggest difference, where we're seeing the greatest bang for the buck, we have to be open to those conversations around meaningful evaluation and meaningful assessments. And we can use our resources, again, unprecedented resources for our Department of Education to put behind this. And so if everything goes well the next day or two, I think we're going to see a new day in early childhood education around the country, and our resources are going to help to drive that change. Just as Race to the Top did at the higher level, we can do this in early childhood space. The final thing I'll say is that what I think we ultimately have to do in this country is we have to get out of the catch-up game. So many of our universities are spending huge amounts of money because 30, 40, 50% of those who go to college, they need remedial classes. They're actually not prepared. Again, we've been lying to students. So many students enter high school too far behind. They enter middle school and elementary too far behind. And if ultimately we want to get out of the catch-up business, if we want to level the playing field, it all comes down to why we're here today, of giving all of our children, but particularly children from disadvantaged communities, a chance to have a rich early childhood experience. And if we can do that, and if our babies can enter kindergarten ready to learn and ready to read with their socialization skills intact, their literacy skills intact, I think we can close those insidious achievement gaps. If we don't, we will continue to play catch up. We will never close those gaps as fast as we need to do. This is an investment we have to make. It is an expense. It is not an expense. It is an investment. We don't need another study to say this is arguably the best investment we as a country can make. It's one that we won't see the dividends, as all you know, for 10, 12, 15 years. But if we do this, and if we do it now, we'll change the lives of our children forever, and ultimately, I think we'll change the course of our nation's economy. If our children can enter high school, be prepared to be very successful, if they're actually ready to go to college, we're going to be in great, great shape. If we continue to have 25% dropout rates, if we don't take the early childhood piece seriously, as a nation, we're going to continue to struggle. The final thing I'll say is the President and I met with a number of CEOs a couple weeks ago, and it was amazing to me how many CEOs in a very tough economic climate are desperately trying to hire people now in our country, and they can't find the knowledge workers to fill those jobs. It's not that they're looking to go overseas. And right now, today, we have over 2 million high-wage, high-skilled jobs that are unfilled. Because we as educators, we have to look ourselves in the mirror. We're not producing the knowledge workers to do that work. And so we have to, again, be willing to break some China, to think very differently, to invest in very creative ways. And if we do that, our country's going to be in great shape. If that doesn't happen, it makes me very, very concerned about where we're going to go. All of you here, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but it is an amazing amount of work that you have done. The EduCare centers that I've seen around the country are exactly what our young people need. The advocacy you're doing is helping to change the national conversation. And going forward, starting tomorrow, Jacqueline and I and our entire team, we think can be much better partners than we ever have to date. Thank you so much. I'll stop now. Diana's to come up, and I'm happy to take your questions. Thank you for having me.